Namaskaram, welcome to the Know Your Culture series. Today in the series of temples, we are looking at Gopurams. The visualization that usually comes to a person when you say temple, especially South Indian temple, is this Gopuram or the tower. The observance of Gopurams is more prevalent from the 7th, 8th centuries, and after the Chola kings started building it. The word Gopuram itself means the entry to a town or a village or a kingdom. It could mean that we are entering the kingdom of God, or it could also mean to enter into any kingdom. Would have been the temples at some point in time. The shape of the Gopuram itself, with the top horn-like thing, is shaped like the cow's head. And maybe that's one more reason why they are called as Gopuram. In the North Indian temples, the Shikara or the tower is taller on top of the Sanctum Sanctorum or Garbhagriha. But in the South Indian temples, you will see the outermost Gopuram, the outermost tower, is the tallest. And as you progress towards the Sanctum Sanctorum or the Garbhagriha, the towers get smaller and smaller. This is in major temples where there are 5 or even 7 parikramas. Parikramas are the layers surrounding the Garbhagriha. The emblem or the symbol of the Tamil Nadu government itself is Gopuram. Ancient major temples have 4 Gopurams on the 4 cardinal directions, on the east, west, north and south, and it is usually considered auspicious to enter the temple from the eastern Gopuram. A Gopuram is more of a pyramidal structure with multi-storied, and the height could vary from anything smaller till up to 240 feet, as in the case of Rajagopuram in Srirangam in Tiruchirappalli. When you approach a temple, the Gopuram is the first thing that a person needs to enter through. And if you look up, you will notice that they have different depictions of stories from the Itihasas and Puranas, depending on what the central deity is. If the central deity is Shiva, then you will have the 64 forms of Shiva depicted. You will have Shakti, the Sapta Rishis, the other Rishis and Munis who are doing tapas. All this depicted in the different tiers. If Vishnu is the central deity, then you will notice the Dasa avatars, the 10 avatars of Vishnu are depicted, Mahalakshmi is depicted, and many other things as well. The Gopuram, the multi-layers, the pyramidal structure goes up, and at the top most you will see the Kalasha. Kalasha or the metallic kumbh or the pot-like structures pointing upward to the sky. In the ancient temples, you will notice that the base of the Gopuram is built with granite rock, and the above part, these are usually made of bricks, mortar and lime, and at the top is the metallic kalasha. The kalasha could be made from copper, or it's an alloy of 5 metals. Sometimes they are gold plated if they can afford it. Basically, they want to use the best conductor that's capable of receiving the cosmic energy and transmitting it into the kshetra or the energy field. When viewed from the top, the Gopuram itself looks like a mandala, a rectangular mandala with yalis and other mythical creatures on the outermost, the Ganas inside, and then the human beings and the Rishis and Munis and the gods and goddesses as a mandala progression. And at the center of it is the Kalasha. The number of Kalashas could vary from 3, 5, 7, 9, 11 or even 13, as in the case of the Raja Gopuram in Srirangam in Trichy. There are many stories attached to the miracles of Kalashas. People claim that if a lightning hits the Kalasha, it's called as Vajra Kalasha, and it is said to carry lots of miraculous properties. Kumbhas or Kalashas are something very basic in every ritual. Even a simple puja at home, they are usually kept. It usually contains a copper vessel with a narrow neck, and a coconut is placed pointing upward. The 3-eye point is placed upward. Mango leaves are placed, swastika is drawn, placed over paddy, rice or any other grain, and many other things. We will look at elaborately how to do a kalasha for puja purposes at home in a different episode. It is said that in the kumbham, Vishnu resides in the mouth of the kalasha, and at the throat Shiva, and at the root is Brahma. And within, Shakti exists. Usually it's filled with water and other stuffs are added, but the whole thing is a representation of the Trinity and the Shakti within. So this Kalasha is basically a kumbh and the Kumbha Abhishekam, the term Kumbha Abhishekam, which happens in every temple once in 12 years, is the process of energizing the Kalasha. What is there inside the Kalasha is multiple grains, the Navadanya they are called, rice, pulses and other major and minor millets. The purpose for which they are kept, there are many explanations to it. One thing that they say is in case of a flood that happens, and those days communities used to be agrarian, based on agriculture, and if their seed lot for the next season is gone, then there is no way for them to carry on their cultivation. It is said that in case of a flood or a deluge, the seeds that are kept inside the kalash, which is at a very high level, which is not affected by the flood, is made use of as a seed material for the next season, and then the cultivation could carry on. The main reason that is ascribed is that it is said that the grains themselves have a certain ability to retain, because seed being a live material, they can retain the memory and the reverberation of all the chanting and chanting of mantras that happens during the Kumbha Abhishekam. What happens during a Kumbha Abhishekam, which is the energizing of the temple, is that kumbhas are placed, kumbha meaning the pot with coconut and the mango leaves, and which I described, and 48 days of continuous chanting of certain specific mantras are done. And on the 48th day, the water is poured over this kalash. The kalash is also kept in the puja, but it is poured over this after the establishment of the kalasha on top of these gopurams, and also the vimana above the sanctum sanctorum. So this is how the energizing of the kalasha happens. It is said in the culture that just one darshan of kalash is equal to having darshan of the deity inside. That's how powerful the kalash is held in the tradition. In village folklore, it is said that it's called as paichal, or the intensity of the central deity could be so strong that people who are not prepared for it cannot handle it. The gopuram actually dampens the energy so that it does not directly impact people who are outside the kshetra. So usually you will notice that in the ancient temples, the deity and the gopuram are in line, and the houses are not constructed across this line. It's usually along the lines, and usually the temple car or the chariot is placed right at the entrance of the main east gopuram. The point between the kalasha of the vimana or the sanctum sanctorum and the kalashas on top of the gopuram on all four cardinal directions is said to be the kshetra or the energy field. So before somebody enters into this energy field or kshetra, one looks up to the kalash and has darshan of it, and then looks at all the depictions of the gods and goddesses on the gopuram, and then enters. Now, how to prepare oneself to be receptive or to make use of the energies inside the kshetra, we'll look at in the next episode. Namaskara.